Hey, how's it going? My name is Mike Squires. This is Couch's Podcast, episode number 181. And my guest, Matthew Rubano, uh, a massively talented electric and upright bass player with a super impressive resume. Currently plays in Angels and Airwaves. He was in Taking Back Sunday. He has performed or recorded with Chrissie Hynde, Mary J. Blige, Lauryn Hill. He played on that Miseducation of Lauryn Hill album, which a lot of people will put right in that top 10 list of greatest albums of the 90s. Which, I mean, that cements him in history right there, as far as I'm concerned. That's an insane record. And the list goes on. And in fact, you can reach out to him on soundbetter.com and have him play on your recording if you like. You could certainly do a lot worse. You can't do a lot better, if I'm honest. You could hit me up, but, you'll be sorely disappointed because Matthew is the kind of bass player that I and most people aspire to be, you know. I had a great time talking with him. Tells me some great stories, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. If you do enjoy the Couches podcast or the videos that we make, the cover song videos, which Matthew is appearing in one that's coming up, it's almost done, just like a lot of them. We're just waiting on a few final components to come through. Please support us at patreon.com/couchriffs. You could support a lot of different things in the world right now. And if you support Couchriffs, that's incredible. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you very much if you are already supporting. And if you're considering, thank you. Thank you for considering. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing, leaving reviews, all that stuff. It means a lot. Thank you to River City Guitars. rivercityguitars.com, at River City Guitars on social media. If you have a cool vintage piece of gear or used boutique kind of a specialty thing, you're looking, you're just sitting on it, you're not doing anything, you want to sell it, you want to move it, you want to trade it, reach out. sales.rivercityguitars@gmail.com. I wouldn't send anywhere that I wouldn't go. I've known Bobby for a long time over there. He's a good friend, and he'll treat you right. So River City Guitars. It's also one of the only places that you'll find this Marvin Guitars CN90 that Keith and I co-designed. I mean, he did all the heavy lifting. I was just like, what if it did this? What if it did that? But yeah, that's the guitar that we designed to help celebrate the 100th episode of the podcast. Pretty sweet. Also, thank you to Variety Coffee Roasters. Now listen, Variety Coffee Roasters in Brooklyn, New York is a fine coffee roaster. You like coffee? Everyone loves coffee. I drink Variety every day. And to celebrate my love, we collaborated on a coffee mug. It's the only place you can get a Couchus coffee mug. Now, how do you get one, you ask? Well, you go over there and you buy 2 bags. They come in boxes, but it's the same as a bag. If I say box, it sounds like you're buying a lot more, but you're not. You buy 2 bags of coffee and enter the promo code Couchriffs, just one word, and you get a free Couch Riffs and a Variety coffee mug. That's pretty sweet. That's the only place you can get one. So thank you so much, Variety. You guys are fucking great. Love you. You guys don't forget the golden rule, okay? Treat people the way you want to be treated, and don't be a dick.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Usual. Just, it's always fun.
We're laughing. Oh, yeah, rock. Oh, there we go. Oh, isn't that good?
Good, a better little angling here. Fuck off. Or should I be in the middle? I don't know. What am I doing?
You're be the creative director of your own shoot.
I love this. This is
You
what
want You want to stand on your head? Stand on your fucking head, man. Be a. There you go. That's it. Now, see? Now, what did they say? Now we're cooking with gas.
Cooking with gas.
Why do they say that?
I guess the idea being that before that you were cooking with wood and you were like, primitive.
But was that the first thing that we cooked with after wood?
No, almost certainly not, right? Well,
Pretty.
well, you don't really cook with gas. That's a big jump, right? From like a pile of rocks to make like a little campsite feed zone to
Pretty
like
propane.
yeah, to like a propane like a gas grill. That's kind of weird. That's a big jump.
That's a strange. It's a funny way to start our conversation, but
Is it started? Are we is this it?
buddy, uh, that's the earliest I've ever heard this.
Yeah, okay.
I've I've been 10 minutes into a conversation and someone has been like, "Hey, so when are we going to start? Do you think?"
We start.
Oh, yeah. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm glad my hat made it into the video. I was today. I'm in the middle of working on a couple of recording projects, and that I started on like. No, I guess I started them yesterday, but you know, I'm sure it was like technical hang up after hang up on not necessarily my end, but yeah, man, it was cool. I love just like working on a song or two over the course of a day and trying to get trying to get it as clean and crispy and get the right part and make all the little
Right.
uh, adjustments and stuff like that. I get a lot of satisfaction from doing stuff like that.
So you're committing some bass to somewhat you're like remote recording bass for someone's
Yeah.
album or single or something. Uh Everyone has gotten a crash course in that whether they wanted it or not in the last year and a half, right?
Everyone that never really wanted to get into recording anything of any kind either had to or I don't know, just leave yourself. You just be practicing at home a lot or writing.
You know who fucking crushed it this year or the last year and a half is like all the people, all the MI people who are making audio interfaces.
Oh yeah, I mean there was a point last year. What is it now? It's June. There was a point last like April, May, June area where you couldn't get a MIDI controller
Yeah.
anywhere in the United States from like any of the music ripoff services. You like it was impossible. There was just anyone who was playing music professionally,
What
and
the fuck?
anyone who was playing music medium professionally, and then anyone who ever wanted to start messing around with music like plunked down their stimmy checks for music gear and home studios and stuff. So yeah, MIDI controllers, interfaces, speakers, everyone was going crazy.
It was pretty insane. And there's still plenty of things that not to be found.
Yeah, I guess I'm well suited over here. I'm a gear minimalist, but I also have what I need to basically function from home. Um, but yeah, I'm sure because also like once you get on that path, it's like how do you know when you're done?
Right.
That's like there's loads of memes and T-shirts and Instagram posts about musicians and spending money on gear and getting stuff forever, and um, so that's like that never ends, I guess.
I mean, I'm guessing, well, it looks like the one closest to, well, the one that appears in the image closest to you, that's a 60s P bass?
This one, this guy,
Yeah. No, that one seems like a newer one. It's got a,
this seems newer to you.
that one looks definitely is a 60s. Or,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, this is a '72 jazz
72.
bass.
Yeah, okay. Oh, jazz bass.
Murdered out black jazz
Hey,
bass.
let me ask you a question because I was watching a Mission to Burma video the other day and I thought, "Oh man, what the fuck that guy's got a Kaler on his old jazz bass."
Taylor.
Have you ever seen a bass caler? Like a bass whammy bar?
Whammy bar. That's is a Kaler the formal term for a whammy bar?
Well, that's one brand. Like there's Floyd Rose, Kaler, Washburn made a locking thing for a while.
I've ever seen rock that is Claypool and maybe did Kip Winger have one on one of his basses back in the day? I could be wrong, but that also sounds right.
Kip Winger had some of the sickest hammer basses, man.
Yeah,
He had a sick hammer violin bass. And I've seen a picture of it recently. A friend of mine now holds it, and I covet it,
great.
actually.
Yeah. So that is a 72. This is like a $700 made in Mexico, just easy peasy Fender jazz bass, a Fender P bass rather. And man, the amount of like records and stuff that I've played this bass on, and last year I did a lot of touring with Angels with this bass. It's kind of crazy how good the right like low price point instrument can sound.
Right.
Um, you know, it's kind of crazy. People are always like, anytime people like hear it or see it, they kind of like are like, "What? Wow, what is that?" And it's just like it's the starter P bass at you know big guitar store or
I'm
wherever.
I'm sorry that we're jumping right into geek talk, but I'm like
What's off limit? Is there anything off limits to talk about?
nothing. Like we're gonna talk about a lot of shit, and it's gonna go and it's gonna branch off randomly. It's gonna be like we're getting high up in the hills.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
do it.
So I'm bass crazy right now. Although in the last 2 weeks I shifted gears because I got a guitar gig,
All right. How nice is that?
buddy.
Don't mix up those gig bags.
No, no, don't. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm trying to really whip myself into shape in many 6 ways a Sunday,
Huh?
and I have a not a Fender jazz bass, but I have a thing that resembles a jazz bass. It does the jazz bass thing, sorta. Does it bother you? Does that front jack ever bother you? What I thought was the Kaler whammy bar was the cable coming up and over the bridge and going through his strap, so it doesn't come unplugged.
See what you're saying. Uh, no, the key there is to have a 90, have a
Yeah,
90
of
degree,
course.
and then tucks back there nice and easy. Um, no, I don't know, man. That's one of those things where like I have some bases where it's on the bottom, of the body, and some where it's on the front, and I just kind of always go for the tuck it behind the strap with a 90-degree input is usually the way to go because that big right angle, if you have a straight cable coming out of the front of your instrument, is just you're begging to knock it off somehow.
Or damage the jack too, just like depending
And
on what sort of a scenario you're in on stage, right?
it is a weird look too. It's a it's a strange.
Right.
It's like somebody who's wearing a tie but they didn't tie it right.
Did Fender ever make like what I would do? I would like put some fucking I'd put some mod in the wiring that fucked everything up, and then I would drill a side jack in because that's the kind of asshole I am.
Yeah, I think they see it. I think it's about where where the electronics are nestled in the jazz bass, but you would think you could just like flip the hole to the bottom. But yeah, get a drill, have at it. Punch up one of your basses and see what works.
I'm great at ruining shit.
Yeah,
Great.
I try as I've gotten older. I try to like follow all directions, use proper tools, stuff like that. But I also know where my threshold is, especially for instrument stuff. Like, when I'm on tour, there's a bunch of people around that are great at handling
Right.
instruments. I don't try to set up my own stuff, but I can get fairly close sometimes with when I actually got my I have a couple of Federa basses, and when I got those, was when I started doing my own truss rod adjustments and stuff like that. And sometimes, I was on a tour where you needed to, where we went through like a ton of climates in a long period of time, so you kind of have to make those little adjustments. But it also, I don't know, man, there's something to really be said for, this is not news or shocking except for people who don't do this, is like there's something really to be said for knowing how your instrument works down to the finest details, because you can spend a lifetime of taking it to people who might not even really know better than Google,
Right.
or you can do all that work yourself. And especially if you're like a playing, performing, touring musician, like you kind of have to, like they always say, you have to be your own manager and booking agent, and you should, you know, that then you're not ever sitting there being like, what happened? Then you can like, know what
Be your own luthier.
your
Uh,
own be the luthier.
my pride tells me that I just like to support craftsmen, crafts
Yeah.
craftspeople. But really, the truth is, I've fucked enough things up that I happily will just pay someone out of the gate rather than pay them to fix what I fucked up plus do what I intended to do in the first place.
Right. And a lot of those great luthiers, well, a lot of those great repair folks make instruments too. There's
Right.
there's there's two kinds out, right? There's the full-on luthier, and then there's the like repair shop guy. And I guess you can kind of end up with really good results at both of those things. But yeah, man, I have like a Rolodex of people around at least the US that I know I would take instruments to when I was traveling, and the guys that used to be in New York and the people out that are out here. Um, but yeah, I've been at the mercy of some. Yeah, I remember taking my 5 string Federa to a repair shop in San Francisco once, and like it was probably just a mistake, like a clerical mistake with the tags or something. But like I needed real work. I might they had a plec machine there, and um, the bass wasn't. It had just had a brutal 3 months of going from like Arizona for a while, LA for a while, and then we were up north in San Francisco in December, so it was freezing, and the instrument was freaking out. And I just remember when we like put it on the table and showed it to the guy and was like, all right, so here's what I'd like to have done. And like, where the dust on your instrument is. When it's been polished or had some mineral oil on the fingerboard or not. And these dudes just handed me my instrument back in the bag, and I opened it and I was like, you guys didn't do anything. They literally didn't do anything. For like $105, please. And I was like, yeah, but you didn't do anything. Look, there's dust in the bridge. You didn't even hit it with canned air. Like, what's going on here? And they were like, and after like, calling the guy or the manager or whatever, they were like, yeah, no, you know what? We didn't do anything. I was just like, sick, but you wasted my day off. Like that was the thing, is I had a show the next day, and then I just had to like muscle through another week of shows before I could get back there on a day off again. So that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, I should know how to do this. I can do it during sound check, and then I can make really like cool micro adjustments to get my basses or my playing exactly how I'd like them to. But you
You
know,
should have invoiced them.
I did. They did end up charging me, which was really nice, and they offered to do the work again. But it was kind of far. It was a little bit of a hoof for me to get there, and I was just like rubbed the wrong way. And I think after that, we were going back down to Costa Mesa, and in Costa Mesa just happens to be a shop called 13th Street Guitars, and they're actually a licensed Federa
Oh.
repair shop. At least then they were. I don't know if they still are. And there's a guy there called Hugh who does really, really great work. So I ended up just taking it there, and then it was like tip top, really slick.
Let me ask you this on the subject of traveling around with, for anyone, I mean, anyone that's listening surely understands like you take an instrument made of wood of any kind, acoustic or electric, and move it from one climb to to another. and the wood flexes, it bows, all kinds of crazy shit happens. The frets start poking out of the sides, all kinds of shit. Have you ever messed around with a graphite neck bass? Because I've been super curious about those.
You know, I haven't. I don't know that I've ever owned one like a Zon or a Modulus or then there's like I think Fender has like used to have like a model that had like a black graphite neck. I think it was a fretless bass. But no, I actually haven't. I'm like looking over there. No, it's all wood in there. Um, I have not, but I would imagine that does that then become a non-issue? Does graphite like
That's right.
it's just it'll just be graphite wherever you take it.
That's right.
Nice. Yeah, I love this set. I mean, I think immediately of like Michael Manring, if you know who that is,
Yeah.
who's like a barely would be considered a bass player. He's like an artist who just happens to use the bass guitar as a medium. And then he doesn't, I don't think he plays them anymore as his main thing, but Oteil Burbridge used to play modulus basses all the time. And um, both of those guys have such clean like monstrous rhythmic, like unbelievably rhythmic slap styles. And I think I always thought both of their sounds, both of their playing combined with the sound of those basses, um, really was like a 1-2 punch because that same sort of thing with through a jazz bass still sounds cool, but it's just a very different thing. And um, particularly with all the like kind of hammer and pull off stuff that Oteil and both Manring do, it was like it cuts through everything else that's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to pump the brakes on the gear geekery for a minute.
All the guitar players have turned this off already.
Yeah, they're just like
four
they're like
string.
telling yeah, they're like texting bassist jokes to their friends. Do you hear about the bassist that locked his keys in the car?
Is that one of them?
Yeah.
What's the punchline?
It took him 30 minutes to get the drummer out.
Oh,
It's kind of a drummer joke, really.
yeah. You know, drummer jokes and trombone player jokes can be really, really brutal.
There's some good accordionist jokes too.
Really?
Oh, great ones, yeah. Like, oh yeah, I left my accordion in the back seat. I fucking, you know, I just wasn't thinking. I went up, went to sleep. I came back downstairs. As I was walking up to the car, my window was smashed, and I was so bummed. I got up to the car, and someone had put another accordion in the back.
That's good. That's one of the trombone one. I think that's good for trombone also.
Yeah.
Um, I always thought the bass player one, bass player one, the light bulb ones. Like how many acoustic bass players does it take to change a light bulb? And it's like, man, I don't touch that thing. It's electric. And there's one about Jocko too. Probably. Oh yeah. How many bass players? How many electric bass players does it take to change a light bulb? Well, here's how Jocko would have done it. It's pretty funny.
Hey, are you set up using your phone right now?
My phone is my camera.
Oh, I see.
I'm on
It,
my computer. I'm using my computer, but I use an app that allows you to stream with your phone camera because the iPhone camera is quite good, quite a
oh
good
yeah,
deal.
no, it's great. No, it's better than the one that's on my computer as well. I should figure that thing out. But we have a little bit of noise cancellation that's happening.
Oh, with you and
Where,
I?
yeah, where if I laugh at one of your jokes, then you get canceled out.
Oh, hold on a second. Is it better now?
Let's see. Talk with me at the same time. All right, that's perfect.
Okay, great. Sorry.
Resume. So so we've talked a little bit because you were kind enough to make time to sit with me and our basses.
Yeah, we had a good
Um
good little bass hang.
and which is awesome, and I recommend to anyone to seek you out for instruction and guidance, bass guidance. Um got a pretty young start.
Uh, I mean, I guess now it seems that way, but not as young as uh, even any of the people in my like high school. Really, like as far as the like rock band instrument
But
kids.
professionally.
Oh, professional. Yeah, I mean, I got lucky, man. I left music school and started. The first like 18 to 23 was kind of like uh, a real weird time of like I went to Berkeley for a bit and then back to New York and had like a job where I was just trying to eat and survive, and then I had like a couple of lucky breaks early on, and these big kind of like peaks and valleys of like, oh my god, I have a great gig, oh my god, I have nothing, oh my god, I have a gig again, and like realizing that I wish somebody would have pulled me aside back then and be like, it's going to be like this forever
For your
and
whole life.
for your whole life. um and yeah, man, but yeah, I mean, I really, when I started, turning the tanker towards music as in my late teens and wanting to go to music school and stuff, I was pretty stubborn and focused and like myopic. All other things kind of disappeared if it wasn't practicing or listening or going to see music. Um, so and like like I don't know. This probably is a little bit different than most cats. Like I was really up for anything, like musically. I If it was like a pop salsa band or a rock band or playing straight ahead jazz or musical stuff or commercial music or really like avant weird experimenting stuff, like my kind of goal from the beginning was like, let's just be able to play music with as many different people out there as we can, and different genres and stuff, and then a little like asterisk on the end of like, and ideally be able to travel around and see the world at the same time. So
Right.
uh had a good amount of both of those things. I've been really, I worked hard and been real fortunate and good old lucky sometimes.
So before you went to Berkeley, yeah?
Hmm?
Before you went to Berkeley, were you had you done a lot of gigging or were you mostly woodshedding?
Yeah, I mean, barely. The shedding had barely begun. I had I had a high school rock band.
Mhm.
Uh, that the guitar player in the band is a producer and engineer from New York called Jamie Siegel,
Who I
and he,
know.
yeah, you know Jamie,
Yeah.
and Jay is my best bud, and we met in high school, and at that point Jay was already like accepted and going to Berkeley. He was a couple of years older than I am, and we were in a band. We had like a very kind of Jane's Addiction-esque rock band.
But he's a
uh,
sick guitar player, right?
yeah, yeah, he's great.
I
And
hated playing guitar in front of him.
uh well, he also has like such huge ears, capacity to listen, not physically, his rather normal sized ears, but he's as a producer and as an engineer, he's that right combo of artist and scientist, where he knows all the the deepest depth of technical wizardry that's happening around him, and at the same time never gets lost in that over the piece, whatever he's
Right.
working. And he's just one of those people who's also worked with so many different kinds of artists and in so many different musical situations. And um, one of the things that I always I both am inspired by this about him, but I also take advantage of it, is like all of his work and experiences really do accumulate. He's always growing and expanding, and he just built a really beautiful studio at his house, and he's just great. He's really really talented, and at times having a best friend who's an engineer and a producer, uh, it makes you go, well, I don't need to learn this stuff. He's always right next to me. And for many, I was like 10 years, 15 years late to like getting my like Logic stuff together,
Right.
because most of the time I was working with Jay and there was no reason. And I really didn't become interested in it until the last uh 10 years or so where I did start where I wanted to start like making music at home on my own and writing and trying my hand at I'll use very little quotes and say producing music. um but yeah, we joke about it all the time. He's always like saying to me, like, dude, you've been sitting next to me for 30 years. How the fuck did you not learn anything? You know? I'm like, what's a preamp? And he, you know,
Yeah, no, I got excited and I bought a DI, this thing,
oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I haven't even plugged it in yet. It just
Yeah,
is
I'll
sit.
make sure you use the right cables because, or just call Jamie. You know what? We should blow up his spot and just be like, he's great for tech support. He always takes my call. Why don't we we should give Jamie's number out on this podcast, see how it goes.
So,
Venmo.
so when you came back to New York from school, you go back and forth twice?
Yeah, so I actually did a really weird thing. So to pick up from there, Jay and we started this high school rock band, and Jamie was already kind of like known for his previous band that was like like a kind of punk band called the Gonads, and
Right.
yeah, the Gonads were great, and then we started a band together with two other friends of ours, and it was like we gigged out a lot. Like there were like probably a half a dozen bands in our high school, in our
Right.
own our school. That's it. And there were like so many good musicians or so many like aspirational musicians. And on Long Island in the early 90s, sometimes I think back to it and I'm like, did this really happen? But like there were a shitload of venues that would let kids play. Like we played like bars and stuff and clubs and like occasionally like a private situation if someone rented like a hall or a venue or somebody's basement or a garage. But like we did a good number of gigs for a bunch of kids that were still in high school. I don't really know if that's still really happening on the ground in the United States anymore. But
Well, not in the last year and a half.
yeah, no, certainly. But yeah, that was my gigging capacity and like and like high school stuff where I was playing in the orchestra and the marching band and the uh, you know, like symphonic band and all that sort of stuff. But I was faking all that shit. I couldn't read, and I was still getting my playing together. I'm not saying I was great, but I just really wanted to. I was jumping in with both feet, and then Jamie and a guy that I was studying bass with at the time, a guy called Mark Salamone, who I really do owe also a good amount of the direction that I sort of went on to him, where he was like, yeah, man, I think Berkeley is where you want to be. And Jamie was doing the same thing. Jay had gone off to school, and I went up and visited him once or twice, and I was like, holy shit, this is a paradise. Um, you know, not Boston per se, no
Right.
offense. Uh, but Berkeley, and I mean that not as a diss to Boston, but as like how stupidly myopic I was, where I was like, this is the building where the classes and the dorms and the studios are. I didn't go outside. When I went to Berkeley, I don't think I went out literally. I'm not being like, hyperbolic to make a point. I don't think I went outside until like the second week of November, October. Got up there in September and was just like, and like, and scared shitless because you meet 4,000 other kids who are like infinitely further along than you are. And, I met people who had already won like you know, the John Coltrane High School Jazz Award, and you're just like, oh my god, I can barely walk a blues right now.
Right.
Um, but it was where I got cold splash of water in the face and did a year and a half there, and then kind of burned out a little bit, and kind of my family was wasn't easy to pay for, and I went back to New York for about a year or so, and then Jay ahead of me had been working in studios in New York City doing a ton of like hip hop and R&B records and all different kinds of stuff. And then he was always trying to like get me gigs when artists would be like, we need a bass player or something like that. He would very delicately and gently try to get me in the room. and which is the whole story of how I got hooked up with Lauryn Hill, and then immediately after recording the stuff on that record, I like moved back to Boston, but not to go to school, just to like live there for a summer. And I mostly just like sold weed and hung out with like my roommates, and that's where I started. That's where I got my first touring gig, was that summer, and then I met a ton of other musicians that were like very like-minded, and that kind of started my next couple of years of bouncing from bus to bus in a bunch of different, or van to van I should say back then, a bunch of different kinds of bands, and figuring out, then I was so like zenned out that if I had a gig, that's all. I didn't care about food, I didn't care about money, I didn't care about my clothes. I just like wanted to play all day every day all the time. um that was my main goal and my main focus.
Okay, so questions. I knew from looking at your performance and recording uh, list that you had played on that Lauryn Hill record.
Mm-hmm.
How much bass did you commit to that record?
I,
And
mhm.
and also Jamie worked on that fucking record too?
Yeah, he had, of all the I don't, I probably shouldn't, I don't know the truth to this, but of all the people that kind of came in and out of her world post Fuji's, from that record onward, Jamie was on that ride for a long time. He started working with her on that record, on the sessions that were at a spot downtown called Chungking,
Uh-huh.
and Amy was one of the engineers there. And then after the record came out and was this tremendous success and everything, he I think he moved. She offered him this job. She moved him to New Jersey, and they set up a recording studio in what if I'm not mistaken, was her childhood home that she bought or owned, or family owned it. And then put a they sort of outfitted it to be a recording studio. And I remember for like 6 months or a year maybe, Jamie didn't, we always lived near each other for the most part. And during that time, he was like living in New Jersey, and working with Lauryn all the time. I don't know what that time period really produced, for her musically. She's got a pretty scant, lean discography post Fuji's. Um, but yeah, I played on a couple of tracks on that record, and they were both like really my first experiences, like working with an artist where it was the real deal, like getting thrown in the room. They wanted to, it was like very collaborative and cool, even though I was like sweating and shaking. Um, but I learned a lot of lessons on that, and none of them were about you know like bass so much as like how to
Music.
collaborate. It was one of those times where I realized, like, oh, all the finger wiggling that I've been doing for years, and that I had put on top of the pyramid of what's important to learn. The years that followed from that record were like, oh no, playing music well with others is infinitely more valuable than shredding and stuff like that. So, but it was a crazy experience, man. I
How
like
how much warning did you have? Was it like a hey,
that's
I think was it like a hey, come down here in an hour with your bass? Or
it
was
was.
it like, hey, next week there's a session and we need a bass player?
No, I'm glad it wasn't that though. I would have not slept for a week. But so it was always in the cards where Jay was. He would always like, he would tell me so and so is in today. Like, Most Def is in the studio. I'll try to put in a good word,
Dude,
whatever. He
what
was.
did you put? What most deaf shit did you play on?
I didn't.
Oh,
I met Most a couple of times, but
I'm a
we
fan.
yeah, no, so am I. He's great. But like he would tell me like who was around, and he'd always be really kind of a good friend and thoughtful and considerate and believed I could hang. So, um, but no, I was waiting tables on Long Island in an Italian restaurant in Rockville Center, and I had a pager back then, if you can believe that shit. And Jay paged me like 911, and I called him. It's like, also you have to keep in mind, it's like, it's a Friday or a Saturday night. It's like 9:15, and this place is on the main strip in Rockville Center next to a movie theater, so it's bumping. And I was like a good waiter there. I was, my dad's a restaurant guy and my brother's a chef, so I kind of grew up in that business. So when I worked at somebody else's place, I was like, I was valuable. I was a
Right.
good server. And I called Jay. I remember I'm standing in front of the window, the like expediting window, and I call Jamie, and he's like, "Dude, Lauren's ready. Get in here." And I was like, "Oh, I can't. I'm working." And I don't remember like verbatim what he said, but it was definitely like something along the lines of like, "You're gonna hold on to your shitty Italian restaurant waiting gig, or you're gonna come in here and meet Lauryn Hill and try to do this." So I immediately made that decision, and told my manager, like, it's like crazy to be like 20 years old or 21 years old and go up to an adult person who's like your boss and be like, "I'm going to leave work right now."
Right.
And
That adult person was probably 5 years older than you, maybe.
he
But
was an older man.
oh,
He was,
okay.
I remember him distinctly. He kind of looked like, what's his name? Alan, from Die Hard and Harry Potter. He's R.I.P. Alan. I always forget his last.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I know who you're talking about. A villainous character.
The villainous character. Wait a second. We can't not name him. Everyone is screaming as they're Alan Rickman. Thank you.
Yeah, gotcha.
Alan Rickman, looking fellow. And I told him, I was like, "I gotta get out of here, man. I have an opportunity that I can't pass up." And he was like, "Well, I can't promise your job will still be here tomorrow." And I was like, "I can live with that." And I like went home, shed my like ravioli soaked clothes, and grabbed my bass and flew into Manhattan from Long Island in my old Subaru, and went on up there, and it was, I guess it was a bit of an audition at first, but we went right into recording one of the tunes that night, and it was kind of like an overnight session. It was like a long haul. It was really fun, and
So you finished a song that night, though.
yeah, yeah, we did. There might have been an overdub session or a punch up, but they are mostly just letting me play like crazy, and then you
Cutting it
know
up and
it up, MPCing and stuff like that. But yeah, it was great. It was a super fun experience, and one of those things that, when it was happening, she was definitely Lauryn Hill from the Fugees at that point. She was well known. She was
right.
famous. She was a monstrous talent, but nobody really knew that that record was going to be what it was. It wasn't like, you know wasn't like telegraphed as
It sits in the top 10 list for a lot of people's
yeah,
90s albums.
yeah. There's a lot of great stuff on there, and great musicians, and um, it was really a time and a place.
How do you know how you played on two songs, three songs?
I played on Everything Is Everything, and then I played on the duet with Mary J. Blige called "I Used to Love Him," and
How
that one's a
fucking
little
sick is that?
daisy bass playing style. Than the other one is a little more just hip hop kind of thing.
How sick is it that you're on a track with Mary J. Blige?
Pretty awesome. Didn't
I
get to meet her, but pretty awesome.
uh
Just
you
hearing
know,
those voices over one's own playing is like,
how many times since then have you been just like moving through your day randomly and heard one of those songs and just been like hit in the chest like, "Oh my god, that's me."
it's funny, man. There was definitely that year, like 99, when is everything was like the big single. I'd hear it through people's walls in my apartment building and be like, and then it's still, if I anything you play on is like that. I played on a record, a couple of tunes for an artist called Berhana
Mhm.
a couple of years ago. He's a good buddy of mine, and a super talented cat. And there were a couple of times where I would hear his tunes that I played on out and about in public, and anytime I that happens, I turn into like your excited, proud uncle, where like I'm more psyched for him. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're getting played in an Olive Garden or something, but not Olive Garden, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then it occurs to me a second later, like, oh, that's me. Um, it's pretty. It's a satisfying feeling for sure. Um, I would imagine that was way more intense for people pre MTV, like to literally hear it when there was
Right.
one destination for all music and it was the radio. And it was like if you were on the radio, you had literally like broken out of a coffin, dug your way through 6 feet of dirt, and breached the surface of the earth. And you were like, here I am. Like, that was, it seems to me that if we were to, you know, mathematically quantify it, that was way fucking harder to do than it is today to just like I have Bandcamp, I have Spotify, I have you can $35 in a DistroKid account and you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Um, it's not special anymore that your music is accessible.
Right. And it's pretty, unless you're, playing on a trap record, which I don't know if there's any actual instruments on most trap.
Occasionally,
Yeah. Yeah.
occasionally. I mean, sometimes
You
it's
probably won't hear it blasting out of a car anymore. Like that was like that's kind of maybe a thing of the past. I don't know. I don't even know.
yeah. There's I mean, we're in this like exponential the like exponential growth is like the zeitgeist right now. Like that's
Right.
where like what was 8 months ago is no longer.
Right.
And even the pace of releasing music and music videos and content and you know, if the news cycle is 24 hours, the entertainment cycle is like half a day, you
Yeah.
know.
Here
Um
today, gone today.
kind of there was a time where a band I was playing in or working with where we played on a song and I'm hearing about the radio and ads and stuff they were getting, and I remember one of the people on an email chain talking about the single in the past tense that it had performed really well, and it was like a week later. It was like the next week,
Right.
and unless you are Dua Lipa or like Beyonce or whatever, some big pop artist who's got a song that's going to be the song of the year, the song of the summer. A lot of other music, it's just like in one ear and out the other, and then give me more.
Who plays bass on the Dua Lipa songs?
So it's not bass
It's
guitar. It's
it's not real.
that one that what's the title of that song?
I don't know.
It's ba-
It's the one that everyone's
The
does
one that
covers.
everyone
I
knows
did
is
it.
not
Yeah.
bass guitar. It's a bass patch.
Huh.
It's a bass guitar sound. Which hey man, I mean, I first heard that and I was like, oh, and I guess I don't. It would be great if it was a bass player because
Yeah.
for that person they would have gotten big ups and like that would be cool. But I don't know. I have a hard time wasting the time of being like, oh, it should be real, like whatever anymore. Yes, many things should be real that are no longer in on Earth in 2021.
Sure.
You know,
All right. So let me ask you this: did you go back to the Italian restaurant?
I went back the next day.
You did.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've still worked there, and I
Yeah.
still was. The day after you do a 12-hour session with Lauren, like you're still just the dumb kid you were the day before.
Sure.
Except you're walking around like, oh, I punched through the ceiling of possibility, and now I can see that I could really maybe do this. And certainly, like later, further on down the road, some of the like notoriety from it really helped. People were always really excited about having played on that record.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I went back and I apologized. I explained what happened because the night I left, I didn't. I was just like, I have to go, and I'm so sorry, and I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, and I just like left. And I went back the next day, and I specifically went to speak to the owners first, who were
Yeah.
they were Italians, and they were like pretty serious fucking guys. And I and you know they liked me in as much as they didn't hate me. And I went in, you know, kind of hat in my hand as best as I could, and I just apologized and explained what happened. And they themselves were really impressed by, whoa, you played with the Fugees, and it was like all of a sudden it was like all was forgiven. And then they would like, you know, if somebody, one of their friends came in, they'd be like, hey Matt, you played with the Fugees, hey. And it was like it became like an okay thing. And then when the record came out, it was um I wasn't even around. I was already on tour with a band, and the record came out. This is one of my probably biggest mistakes I ever made that I didn't know was going to be a mistake, which was the record came out. Uh, I want to say summer or spring, summer. Yeah, because by the fall I was on the road and it was out. Um, and I took my first paid sideman touring gig, and it was long as hell. I think we left Boston in July or August, and it ended in November in Boston, in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And so I
Just the
said,
states.
"What's that?"
Just the states.
Just the states. It was like I was touring in like a kind of like a fusiony hippie jam band kind of thing called Hypnotic Clambake. True story.
Great.
And
That's not half as bad as the band name of my first band, but that's great.
let's hear it.
This isn't about me. I
What
just
did
am. I'm propping you up and letting you know you can feel good about that.
And so Hypnotic Clambake, and I wasn't in New York, you know, while I was getting phone calls or I was getting people trying to contact me
For
um,
weed.
for weed,
Yeah.
uh, for weed in Boston and New York for bass. Like
What was your code for weed on your pager? Was it 13?
we didn't really, you know, summer of '98, I guess that was in Boston. Every musician I knew smoked weed. I lived with three other musicians. All four of us sold weed for the most part. Like,
Yeah.
and it was just so we could have weed. You know, we would like sell, like keep an eighth and sell an ounce kind of thing, you know? And we all just hung out with other weed head musicians. So it was like a, what is that? Because that's not a Ponzi scheme. What is it when everybody's just exchanging goods and nobody
Right.
comes out ahead? It was that, whatever that is. Is that socialism? I don't know.
Uh, sure.
It worked though. It was great. But I did miss like this period of time where I could have basically marched around from recording studio to recording studio, being like, "Yo, that was me," and try to get on tracks. Maybe not. That's not how it would have gone. But
Right.
instead, I was, you know, playing like the High River Mountain Fest with the string cheese incident. But that shit was cool too. You know? Like I, I I was you know, I'm always like been lucky enough that I've been in all these very disparate, weird situations, but I learned lots of stuff from all of them.
Sorry, my dogs are there's some fireworks going off in the neighborhood, and so my dogs are just like not having it. Rosie is hiding under the desk, and so we got a little commotion
Is
going
that
on over here.
typical for your zone? Is that typical?
Well, yeah, we live very rurally.
Oh, okay, so fireworks, that's on the table,
Yeah, I mean, you hear a loud boom, you don't even know if it's fireworks.
right? Well, I was talking to a neighbor of mine over here the other night about because I've heard some booms in the night here, and I live in Los Angeles, and uh, I honestly, other than watching a movie, like I don't have a lot of experience with guns, and I don't really know how a gunshot differs from like a very loud firework, other than I think maybe the firework sounds more hollow. Is that how you might describe it?
Well, a firearm sounds a lot more focused. It usually has it's a tonally, a bit of a higher pitch.
Higher, okay.
It comes down a barrel, you know. So you imagine rather than just exploding.
Right. That there's a greater release of force through a tiny little opening.
That's correct.
Well, that's what she said.
That's right.
They're that good, you kind of have to say it.
No,
When
I
that,
say you said it right on the T.
yeah, I know.
Said it right on the T.
We can edit that.
So,
We can edit.
we're not editing. You know, we're not gonna get canceled for that's what she said. Um, so was there ever? How do I? How do I talk about this? Was there ever the idea that you would be able to tour with Lauryn Hill if she when she went on the road, or was it a thing where she was like, "No, sorry, buddy."
Yeah, it never. It was very. Uh, it just was never brought up.
Yeah,
Uh, I certainly was like,
good job, cutie pie, but
yeah,
yeah,
I was trying to poke around it and see, but um, honestly, man, the list of people that have done the road with her or have been in her band or have like lived with her near her in Miami to do whatever, um, it's like I know probably like could name 30 cats right now that have like fucked with her one way or another,
right.
and I would say 28 of them have the same horrible.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, so and I, it's like weird talking about it because I trust all those people and the similarities in the stories are staggering. And then I don't know if you caught Robert Glasper like a year or so ago, kind of went through it too with her when he was younger, and his telling of the story is real no holds barred, no pulled punches, and it's fair, it's accurate. Like he's not being harsh. The situation is harsh. The
Right.
treatment that was kind of doled out to a load of musicians being sort of lured into something with, you know, a lack of clarity on what you were there for and what you'd be credited for, what you'd be paid for.
Oh, I do remember reading about this. A
Yeah.
lot of
And so
people didn't get paid.
yeah, but Robert really like I'm saying Robert like I know him. He really like has the cachet and the personality or whatever the career size in that world where him speaking up about it is great, is just those all, and not like any of those people are, I would imagine, are still trying to get paid or whatever, and I'm sure she does have a band of people that is happy and does get paid because she does shows when there are shows to be done. um and I don't, I'm not really trying to weigh in on somebody else's thing, but
Sure.
like shitty treatment of musicians is fucking demic.
Yeah.
Always has been. It's getting worse every decade, every year, and just as many people want to make and play music all the time. It's just like the business of music is fucked, and it always kind of has been. So when you see somebody selling 20 million records worldwide who's got tight pockets for paying the people who make the music that they themselves do not have the ability to make, you can't have a factory and tell everyone that can operate the machines, I don't need you.
Right.
You're a big fancy CEO who can hit the factory floor and work 27 machines at the same time. Good luck to you, sir. But like, I've always found it. There are a couple of artists out there trying that funny ass shit with like playing with me is more valuable than money.
Right. You should be paying me to be on the road with me.
That's another phenomenon of like support bands paying headliners for
Oh,
the.
sure.
That's a real ass thing, man. That's
That's
like
been a thing for years. I think Kiss famously pioneered that.
that makes sense. That makes sense. You were like, we'll merchandise everything, even the opener.
Right. What do you remember? Fuck, I don't even remember how long ago it was. It must have been 7 years ago. Um.
My dog is leaving the room, by the way, to almost certainly pee on the floor.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
There was the Hispanic workforce went on strike for a day or two. Do you remember this nationwide?
In the U.S.,
Yeah, and it was kind of like
how do I not know this happened?
It was a thing.
But what went like recently? How long?
In the last decade. I think it was like 7 years ago, maybe. And it was a thing where they were talking. It was like, what are we gonna do about illegals? And they were like, fuck you. Let me show you what happens if you get rid of us.
Yeah, no food, no
Yeah,
restaurants,
fuck
no
you.
health.
No, fuck, no, a lot of shit. Right? What if musicians went on strike for a week? But just hear me out. Wait. Not just didn't perform music for people, but also didn't perform the job that they have to perform in
Oh yeah,
order
yeah,
in order to be a musician.
their gig, their day job.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that is heavy. So I'm glad you added that second part because if you hadn't, my answer would be Spotify does record numbers
Yeah.
together, and we all get
Right.
fucked.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
a there's an algorithm out there that would put out a new record for you.
totally. Based on the tendencies of your previous album, you might like this album.
Or
Uh,
based on your artistic output, your next album will sound like this.
Probably, in all likelihood. Um, yeah, that would be interesting and really telling. But I also think, you know, I've always felt like it's kind of, you know what, dude? I'm gonna have to give this guy a treat because he's just gonna bark.
Oh yeah, give treat him out.
So successfully peed somewhere, so now
Treat
he
him.
thinks he gets a treat for it. So, give me
Treat
two
him.
seconds. I'll think about a really good answer for this question.
Okay.
So I gotta say, oops, my dog did not just pee on the floor, but it is exactly on the dot, just turned 6 o'clock here. And you can set your watch by my dog's knowing of what his feeding times are.
Yeah.
10 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m. He's like,
Let's go.
he'll just start barking. So I threw a little treat at him.
Good.
Hope that'll be cool. So yeah, that would be a fascinating experiment, man. The thing that I worry about with stuff like that is kind of what I always worry about when musicians or creatives or artists try to go. And what if we don't do our
Right.
world goes? Oh yeah, we'll just play the fucking recording. Like
Right.
when the Broadway cats were trying to strike was when Broadway got as close as it ever has to just using recordings and being like, yeah, I guess we don't really, you tell producers you can save all that salary money in a year and just hire a playback person, and you're who at their business is business, not even music or musicals. It's business. It's selling tickets,
Or
selling t-shirts,
art.
yeah, art, fart. It's and I guess you can't knock the hustle, but the hustle has some really devastating effects on the art. So to the point where you have people going out and dedicating their life to careers they don't really want, but that's pretty close to what they can do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think it would be a fascinating show of like who these people are and where they show up in the world. If you had your musicians not showing up to gigs or sessions or their day jobs, um,
Because gigging musicians run the gamut.
yeah, yeah, for sure. There, some of them
They're
are
in
fucking FedEx drivers, and some of them are baristas, and some of them are like, you know, administrative people in offices and stuff. Like, it's all over the place. Even when I was in New York, uh,
You remember old Bill Clinton blew the horn.
yeah, man, Mike Huckabee.
Is that
Uh,
right?
yeah, Mike Huckabee plays the bass, but he's whack as shit. Um, the Yeah, I was in New York after I toured with the All American Rejects for a while, and after that run with them, I stayed in New York for many years, and I was doing a bunch of different things, but I had was doing significantly less music, and I started doing some like comedy and acting, and that's when my friend group, my really like at this point coast to coast friend group, mostly in New York and LA, became as much musicians as it was comedians and actors and writers and people who were trying to direct or work in TV or film. And when I think of the entire sort of spectrum of people I know, particularly during the comedy years. I mean, you had people who were like lawyers who were still trying to like become stand-ups. Or I mean, I remember doing improv with two different dudes who were, one was an EM, they were both nurses, or one was an EMT and one was a nurse, and they had full-time medical careers and they were also doing a ton of improv. And then
Wasn't the guy from The Hangover the guy that gets kidnapped and jumps out of the trunk, the Asian guy? Wasn't isn't he a doctor?
I don't know, but that sounds right.
I I feel like like that was a bit of like trivia when that movie came out. Like, oh yeah, this
Sure.
guy was a doctor, and then but he makes more money in the
Yeah.
entertainment
But it's
business.
like you said, all creatives, period, run the gamut of what they will and can do to survive while chasing the dream. And now, today, we call it, or there's like, the side hustle, which is like,
Right.
here's what I do as my job. Here's what I really want to do, but it's also my job. And the truth behind it is like, you need to be doing one more than, you either need to be like kind of the best at what you do, or you need to be doing more than one thing to like live.
We used to call it moonlighting.
Yeah, right. Moonlighting. He moonlights as a DJ at a college radio station.
Right.
But now it's like the same thing. It's like they moonlight as a DJ at their friend's bar alternate Saturdays all summer, and they have a SoundCloud where they're a DJ, but like they also are a veterinarian. So, but that's cool. I mean, I think that that's kind of, it's too hard to do your art and demand of your art at a young age. Sustain me, take care of me, art. Like,
Do you think that there's part of having a quote side hustle or main hustle and music has to take the sidecar, that is good for staying hungry as a musician?
so wait, repackage your question. Do I think that the
Do you
the
think
the
there's something good that there's a beneficial component or element to not being able to focus completely on music, like
yeah,
have your attentions drawn away so that you hunger to
yeah,
be
dude,
playing?
you can't have any pudding if you don't finish your meat.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Like, uh, I think I'll put it this way: not musicians, not like cats, not like freelance people, but like every dude. It's all dudes. Uh, in this case, that I know who got on young in a band, famous at 22, famous at
Right.
25, or just not working, just t-shirt ticket money coming in like crazy, and are all like some like a lot of low spark and high heels kind of thing. A lot of people who didn't earn it. A lot of people who then get their heads kind of fucked and go, I'm more successful than people that they fear because their egos won't let them know, that are more talented than they are because of a loophole in the system. Your band is cool right now. The genre that you make is having a moment. And I mean, I remember going with a musician that I was playing with years ago, who was like a singer, a shit singer, a barely decent songwriter, and a prick of a human. And but we were in a thing together, and we went to a gig. I took him to a gig in New York, in the city, one night, and we went to see. I forget where it was. It was either at like I think it was at Pianos, or maybe the Mercury Lounge. Um, and it was like, and this dude was really into like singer songwriter stuff, even though he didn't really have the DNA of those kinds of artists. And we watched like five. I was going there to see a friend of mine perform, a guy called Dan Torres, um, and I don't even think that's his name anymore, actually. But yeah, I went to see this guy who was like a fucking ripping guitar player. His instrument, his vocal instrument, is still one of the greatest I've ever heard. He kind of has that, like, he's in that Jeff Buckley space.
Yeah.
Uh, you don't usually throw that one around lightly. This dude was a bad boy,
Yeah.
and we went to see him play. And I remember this guy who was like, you know, not famous, but like almost pretty close. It was coming, like be in awe and be like, holy shit, what label is this guy on? I was like, he's not signed. And he was like, well, what band is he in? Like, when is he touring? And I was like, he's going to be pouring coffee tomorrow morning on 12th and A.
Right.
And he's 4 roommates, and he's literally looking for anything to do all the time. And I watched it occur to this guy, this kid. I saw it behind his eyes, this like calculation of like, I'm a fraud, you know, like he watched him realize like, oh, I didn't earn this. I'm not, this isn't merit based. I got through on a technicality. And I think to a certain degree, not that night, but that phenomenon really fucks with people like that, really fucks with their heads, because you're always walking around going, I'm a big deal, but you're not. You left to your own resources, left to your own devices, you can't make music. And that's kind of how I feel about some of the, you know, really obnoxious, high-minded, arrogant, narcissist diva artists that are out there who, if you leave them in a studio by themselves, all you're going to hear is the hum of the gear.
Right.
So, you know, everybody needs everybody, because you could put also 12 dope musicians in a room, and if there isn't a diva to front it, it's just going to be jamming.
Right. It's going to be wackadoo.
Yeah, or awesome, but it's not. That's not. It won't be in the same lane. You know, it's like the you know, that Edie Brickell quote from back in the day.
No, I
Edie,
don't, but I loved
Edie
that
Brickell,
band.
the New Bohemians.
Yeah, great band.
I don't know if this is true. I've heard it from different people, but it's a story where the bass player in the band, uh, you know, when they were, you know, engaging their fame, had said to her famously, like one night, like, without us, you're just some chick with a guitar, or you're just some chick. And she was like, actually, honey, without me, you're just some dude with a bass. And it was like, yeah, they're before you become famous, they're both not wrong. And as soon
Right.
as you become famous, the bass player's wrong.
Right. He's a friend of mine, actually.
You know him, really?
Yeah.
The guy for the who's done it the whole time?
Yeah, Brad Hauser.
Wow. So maybe
He's
you could confirm that story. Have you heard that story?
no, I've never heard it, but he was always really cool to me, but he's said to me like over the years when I've been like he was one of the first people I met in Seattle and I took a couple of bass lessons from him. He was always really really cool to me when he didn't need to be. I was just some
He's
fucking
like a fretless guy, right?
yeah, he was a big Jocko fanatic.
Wow. I love that
Uh
you can check. Will you do me the
I'll
favor of
fact
checking
check.
this
Yeah, you
story?
know,
Yeah,
I'll ask.
because I've heard this story from more than one person, and I've told it a bunch of times in these kinds of conversations, and I sure hope I'm not making that up.
I don't know. But
Yeah,
he's a great bass player.
yeah,
Fun, yeah. But
he's all. I mean, that single is, you know,
oh,
that
the bass.
guitar solo. It's
Oh, the
her
yeah,
track
dude.
song, but he's killing it.
Oh yeah, no, the bass line is it's like not too far, you know, but
Well,
it's
it's funny
it's
that she married Paul Simon, right?
yeah.
So it
And then
is
the
funny.
band broke up.
Right. But it's funny because that was probably around the same era as like You Can Call Me Al and Bakiti Kumalo playing with Paul Simon.
Right.
So it's like I love the idea of like a husband wife singer songwriter couple who's like, we both must have fretless basses. Either of them are British. I don't know why I did that, but yeah, that's fascinating. Well, you got
uh,
to check that story then. Let me
I
know.
will. I will for sure.
My regards and admiration.
Um I've actually, you know, I think I told you, I ripped the frets out of one of my basses just so I could learn a Pinot song
Yeah,
and then it's just mostly collected dust since then, but that's a song I also learned that one.
yeah.
Um not very well. It's a whole it's a real you have to really commit yourself to be a fretless bass
Oh my,
player.
yeah.
I mean, you can
It's
I'm a fretless bass owner.
it's funny that it's funny to think of fretless bass as a molecule inside the world of playing bass, which is already like, oh, you're gonna do that for your life.
Right.
It's really, you might as well become a fucking beekeeper or something real
Right.
niche and specific. And then already in that being like I remember guys at Berkeley who only had and only played 6 string fretless bass, and I was like, you don't get 90% of the gigs you can't even audition for because no one will let you bring that in the room.
Do you know?
Like,
Are you in touch with any of those guys, and have any of them made a name for themselves?
yeah, the one of the guys I'm thinking of was an Israeli bass player who went on to do very, very well, and of course, the poorly made decisions of what acts you're playing and where your head is at when you're 19 or 20 or whatever at music school, you quickly shed that stuff in the first few years in the industry because you learn what adults are doing. You learn,
What's important?
I didn't have a fucking jazz bass, dude, until I was in Taking Back Sunday in the mid 2000s. I was playing a 6 string MTD and like maybe had a P bass lying around, but like I was the other way where I was a late adapter of the standards of the real meat and potatoes stuff. And I did also wasn't like a big I was so obsessed with playing and notes and groove and that like gear and tone were like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
You and I was very into the 6 string thing, but you at some point you're just like, it's not that it's not cool, it's just not right for everything. You know?
Does a six-string bass have a an additional low string and an additional high string?
Yeah, it's a regular bass sandwich.
Right.
It's all close. Yeah, it's great.
I've
But
never heard anyone put it that way.
that's what the best way. That's the best visual for it, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, man, that
I
yeah,
still
that's
don't own a P bass. I ordered one.
yeah, you'll love it. I mean, that's the one thing that like it's so talking about this stuff is really funny, right? Because like I'm on I'm on this like thread, this text thread with a shitload of bass players out here in LA, and there's some real bad boys and girls on it, and
Do you guys shit talk?
no. You know what's really weird about it is the most not weird about it. One of the best things about it is it's and I'm the one of the newest people on it because I got put on right before quarantine, and then the world was ending, and we all just kind of became support squad for each other at
Right.
time. It's a really loving, supportive, generous place. If somebody's like, hey, I need an upright for a gig on Thursday. I'll be gentle with it. Like it's it's like a trip to have like Sean Hurley be like, oh yeah, man, I got one for you. Come on over. Or like same. Like I remember lending Justin Meldal Johnson like a cardboard box to ship a bass in, and like it makes me feel awesome that I can help out a dude like that who I've always found really inspiring and talented and cool, and a lot of my kind of peer bass players are on there, guys that I've known since music school, guys that I met in Boston in the 90s and stuff. And we always joke about like we always sort of wonder like is there a drummer thread, is there a guitar player thread? And then I was on a gig last week with this great guitar player, well, two great guitar players. This one guy, Rod Castro, who's a real monster and a wonderful human, good friend of mine, and the guy whose gig it was this guy Joshua Ray Gooch, and he is also a stellar guitar player and stellar dresser. And how was I talking about? Oh yeah,
Guitar thread.
guitar thread. Yeah, yeah. The wait, what'd you say?
The guitar thread.
Yeah, yeah, the guitar thread. He was like, "Man, I've heard about the bass thread," and it's like, in LA, it's in the ether that that thing exists. But no, it's awesome. It's great to there are people like Bob Glaub on it. Stu Ham is on it. It's like
Wow.
it's rad. It's
Yeah.
really there's a 17-year-old, 16-year-old part of me that's like on it a lot, and but it's a lot of great, really nice people. And yeah, but the gear talk on that, I think was where I was going with all that, is as specific and niche and well informed as you. I mean, imagine if before buying a piece of gear, you could ask 40 of like the illest bass players in town what they think of it, and for the most part, everybody's really like objective and pot. There's no like that thing sucks,
Right.
unless we're all like, yeah, no, that thing sucks. But like, it's great. It's really
No,
fun.
that sounds like an amazing resource. I think I punished you for a week about bass amps, and then
Yeah.
I went to buy one, and it's one of the pieces of gear you can't find anywhere.
Oh, really? Were you
None
having
of the
trouble?
well, no, they're out of stock everywhere.
Oh, wow.
You
Hmm.
can't find one.
Well, maybe I can connect the dots for you if we're still talking about that same company.
I mean, if they don't have one at any of the stores, I doubt that they're just like sitting on money that they could be
I know a
making.
guy. I know a guy. Don't
I'm
worry.
just saying, like if I had a thing that I knew I could sell and everyone wanted it,
Yeah, right.
crunch all you want.
Right. That makes reminds me that I just finished all 3 seasons of Narcos last night.
Nice.
Thinking of things that everyone wants that you can sell, and that was intense. One intense. I did it in. I got back from. I've watched 3 seasons of Narcos in under 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, dude. And I have no interest in doing cocaine still.
Is well, go figure.
Yeah, yeah.
I only watched the first season.
It's great. It's a great show. I was also watching it because I've been trying to like punch up my Spanish grammar and conversation ability. So I'm trying to, when I do consume uh, TV and film, I'm trying to go for something Spanish language first, or like an American thing that's dubbed in Spanish, but that's a lot harder to find, to my
Do
knowledge.
you have South American tour coming up, or is it just so that
My dad lives in Mexico, and I, have I've lived in major city. I've lived in New York City and Los Angeles in most of my adult life, and
a lot of Spanish being spoken in those places?
Spanish being spoken. I know a lot of Spanish musicians that I can't really fully communicate with, and just in general, like my dad actually lives down there, and you know, while I don't get to go as often as either of us would like, I don't love being in another country for a prolonged period of time and not acquiescing to the language. I don't, as an American, it feels shitty and ugly. And I don't, you're not, not everyone's expected to just like learn a language. It's a big ask.
Yeah.
But I do have like 4 years of like, crappy American high school Spanish. So my vocabulary is big, but my grammar and conversation and like the real way people talk is what I'm after. Um, so
I
yeah, I
sound
mean,
like a 3-year-old. I sound like a 3-year-old when I speak Spanish. That's,
yeah, and I
I
don't
can't.
love that. I don't love being, I've been around the world in different places, and I've felt the cold, icy stare of "fuck you, you don't speak this language. What are you doing here?" I lived in Switzerland for months when I was younger. I had a gig out there. I lived in Zurich for like probably like 3 or 4 months,
Oh, yeah.
and
It's beautiful.
oh man, it was insane. But the Swiss Germans don't give a fuck that you don't speak Swiss German, and they're not like I tried to buy a telephone card a number of times from the newsstand across the street from the apartment I lived in. It was this older woman sat there every day all day. I bought numerous telephone cards from her, and every single time I would approach the thing, I would say good morning, and then I would say telephone carta, and she would be like, and I would point to it, and she would not look and be like, and I was like, this also, to be fair, that's the immediately post 9/11 world that we were living in at that point. So
Right.
I'm not everybody's favorite. But yeah, man. So I don't love being, when I go down there, it feels very much like, especially because like my dad's Spanish is pretty good,
Where
and
is he living at?
he lives. in a town called Buena Vista, which is
Uh-huh.
about an hour north of Cabo San Lucas in Baja Sur.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's just something I'm trying to do. I don't like feeling like you're. It kind of feels disrespectful at times, you know, uh, to be botching someone's native tongue while you're there, especially in like a kind of vacation capacity. It's like
Right.
you want to be together, but most people don't feel that way in the world,
No.
except people. I should say, and by most people, it's like Americans. People around the world, on average, speak two languages because of the
Or more.
yeah, or more because of the but that's for different reasons. People that speak two plus languages in Europe is because 300 miles in any direction is a new country, and you
And another
eventually
language, yeah.
have to, or it's part of your upbringing or your daily life or the media or the entertainment you consume. In the States, you drive 300 miles and it's just a different dialect, um, or accent, I should say. So
I would love to be great at speaking Spanish, but
any other language, man. I'd love to be able to speak Icelandic. I don't,
right.
whatever it is. It's
How
just like
long how often are you going to break that out though?
dude, you
Great
get your
party favor. It's a great party favor.
work tour, dude. Those two words sound great together. Bjork tour. Sounds like Warp Tour, but it's Bjork tour.
uh how long have you been in LA?
I moved here November 2019. So just about 2 years.
Whoa, wait a minute. You moved there 3 months before the shit hit the fan?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah, three like and and when I moved here, there was a tour. I toured for a good part of the first while I was there. There was like a December, like a holiday run. We did like
Right.
the radio hustle.
Deck the hall ball.
Yeah, right. Um, Jingle Rock,
Yeah.
uh, stuff like that. And so I was home for some of January, all of February. I think we had a tour get canceled, and then March. I was just talking about this last night. That guitar player Rod Castro that I mentioned. It was his birthday last night, and I went and stopped by a little hang that he had, and we were talking about how my birthday that year, 2020, which is in March, we had my girlfriend at the time threw me a surprise party, and probably like 25 or so musicians came through, and the next day, literally, lockdown started, and or at least like the mass COVID news had peaked, and it was like, yeah, we're done, everything's done, everything's toast. And for a while, that first couple like 6 months, when I'd be like, zooming with somebody or texting with somebody, they they would always be like, yeah, people keep talking about like your birthday as if it was the last thing that ever happened. So I think I was officially the last pre-COVID birthday, at least in my friend group, and then it was the long horrible year.
So you moved to LA, your tour gets canceled, and then because of COVID, and
Yep.
then the fires.
Yeah. No, man, it was
It
dope. I
was
mean, I
That's a
really
pretty shitty first like 8 months out there.
it was a real ball smasher because I also had, I had a full year, like a pretty solid calendar with Angels and Airwaves, and then I had some stuff in between, and then for the following year, which would have been December 2020 and January 2021, I it was looking like I was going to have a contract here in LA to do a musical at the Amundsen Theater that would have
Uh-huh.
been 8 weeks of work during the holidays, which is like, unless you are doing the rock and roll jingle ball hustle, um, you know, holiday time is the music business grinds to a halt.
Right.
So I had 2 months, and the theater was like a mile from my apartment. It was like, oh, I'll walk to work every day. and this is going to be great. Um, and it all shit the bed in about 48 hours worth of phone calls. It was just like, nope, canceled, nope, canceled, nope, done, done, done. No, no, you remember a year ago, nobody knew anything. People were still arguing over whether or not it was happening.
Or how long it was going to last.
Yes.
How did the Angels gig come together?
For me,
Yeah.
uh, just like kind of cool timing, I guess. I had met Tom many years ago, and Mark and Travis, when I was in Taking Back Sunday, and were we opened for Blink a lot. Like at first, it was like a one-off maybe or something, and then they took us on tour. We were a support band on one of their big tours, and Tom also produced and directed a Taking Back Sunday video years ago, and they also had like a clothing and footwear company, and we were always like kind of hooked up with that stuff, and um, yeah, it was just like a whole kind of like we were like friends, I guess you'd call it. After lots and lots of touring and stuff, and then down the road when I was playing with like All American Rejects, I did another tour opening for Blink. That was like an around the world thing that was like
Oh,
all over
wow.
the place and super fun. And so yeah, I mean, I had just been around those guys a lot, and then I just kind of got a call one day where I was playing with Glassjaw for a little while, and in the middle of that, or maybe before that, they had kind of felt me out for some Angels stuff, and I know David and Tom, and I hadn't met Ilan at that point, but yeah, it just kind of it very luckily and gratefully it kind of fell in my lap. So got to been doing that for the last little while.
Was your experience touring in two different bands with Blink? Were they distinctly different from one another in any way?
Uh, yeah, of course, right? I mean, just by nature of it being different
Different
human
group of people.
time. I
I
think the
guess I
thing
mean more like the day to day thing. Because
uh,
you
it
did
was
a.
always it was always huge. It was always dope. It was always sold out. It was
Right.
always really fun. Those are the things that never changed. They cultivate a pretty fun energy in the building. They're just
Yeah.
like that's the nature of Blink 182, right? Um,
Did they
so
clown you guys ever? Like last night at.
Oh yeah, the last night of tour was always like you were covering your butthole and making sure you had protective eyewear on.
Right. Non slip shoes.
Yeah, we did one. So we did one with Blink. I don't remember what it was with the Rejects, but I do remember with TBS two things happened. Um, One was they might have done this in the same night. We did a long tour with them, and the last night we're in the middle of our set. We're closing with a song, and uh, a fucking never-ending shower of popcorn starts coming down from above. And it's like it's shitty. You know what it and I was like, "Oh, that's so much popcorn. Where did they get?" They got it from a movie theater last night. And it's like, movie theaters throw away gigantic garbage bags filled with oily, greasy, buttery, shitty popcorn every
Yeah.
day. And these fools went and offered them $100 or two tickets to the Blink show
Right.
and just dumped popcorn on us during the song. And then after that stopped, it's a short song. Taking Back Sunday doesn't have long songs. And after that stopped, the Blink road crew, we were still playing. We were in the middle of it. Popcorn
After
shout.
that, the butter came.
No, worse. Their road crew just started walking on stage and one by one taking pieces of gear from our setup. Somebody and the drummer's like playing and they would like take the hi-hat and he'd just be like, okay, ride, and then someone would come from the other side and like take the ride, and then it's just they take the snare drum, then it's just and taking pedals and unplugging your guitar, killing your wireless, taking the mic stand. But it was like an honor. That shit was like a real like rite of passage or like a badge of honor. It was really fun. to be because it makes you feel that shit makes you feel like you're equal, like you're a peer. When somebody's
For
busting your
sure.
balls,
Yeah.
that's infinitely more massive band, iconic kind of person, and they're breaking your chops on stage in front of 18,000 kids. You're like, I'm cool as hell. You feel cool. It feels
Did you
nice.
did you dare retaliate
Uh,
in any way?
they have tried it. This is where my shitty memory doesn't kick in, but um, or does kick in, I should say. We definitely tried, and it almost certainly was thwarted. You
Right.
know, like there were other times too that weren't the last night of tour where those guys would just prank us or shit on us, and they did it as if it was like, they would do it like in between, like going from the press tent to catering. And I remember one day we were in our dressing room, which was like in a sports arena kind of thing, and we were in our little dressing room. And I remember Tom opening the door and like leaning in and be like, "Hey, you guys." And then everyone was like, "What's up?" And then he had a bucket of water that he just threw on us and then shut the lights and locked the door. You're just like, you're standing in there soaking wet and like in the dark, and you're laughing so hard because you're like just got fucking clowned, but it's
Right.
fun. So yeah, so when that whole thing came around, I was psyched to be asked. I was like psyched to be around Tom again. And I really was very excited at the prospect of playing with Ilan, Ruben,
What a stud.
what a stud. And also Dave Kennedy, I think is one of my favorite dudes out there. I find him to be one of the funniest human beings on the planet in a way that I don't know if everybody else sees it, but I just really like David. David's fun to hang out with, and yeah, it's a fun hang, man. And obviously, standing next to Alon and playing, pounding rock music is
Talk about a rhythm section.
yeah. Thanks. It's great. It's super fun. He's a real. You've spoken to him though. You've had him on here,
I
right?
had him on the show. He's the reason I ordered a P bass.
Oh yeah,
Actually,
of
I
course.
think
I'm
I
sure.
told you that. I
Yeah,
was
he made.
trying. I was trying to not punish him too hard about playing with Pino,
Yeah.
but
Why? I do it all the time.
he
It's
played
fair.
with Pino, so I was just punishing him. I was just like, look, you got to talk to me here.
Yeah. And he's
Um,
like, well, he was. I bet you he made you show him the receipt. Like
no,
you got
no,
to.
he was just like,
He's
look,
such a P-base head.
he was like, look, Pino told me something very important in the lounge one night,
Uh,
and that was this: if you want to work, get a P bass.
yeah,
And
that
I
story.
was like, fuck.
10 different bass players. That's like the thing.
The
Yeah,
next day, I actually ordered a Nash.
and that's when you got the gig with the Who.
That's right. It was just like that. It was just that easy.
Yeah, you leave the store and all of a sudden, somebody's clamoring for your fingers.
All you clowns with Thunderbirds, you fucking up.
Get out of here. Yeah, that's and then you find out that the real truth is if you want to work, you have to have 12 different basses. Like you got to have a hollow body, you got to have a short scale, got to have a P
Right.
bass, fretless, got to have a J bass.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm starting to get excited about. What hollow body do you use? You've got one, right?
Don't have one.
You don't.
I have two Federas, an MTD, two P basses, two J basses, and Ernie Ball Caprice.
Oh,
And I don't really have, other than the Federas and the MTDs would be considered, I guess, exotics, but they're both very much, well, one of my Federas is pretty much a jazz bass in its design and inception and build. My 5 string is like one of their 5 strings. And the MTD is also guts wise mostly a jazz bass.
right.
So not like, they're not like swirling maple topped, fancy pantsy. They have fancy electronics in them and stuff. But yeah, lately I have my eyes on. I went to see a friend of mine play last night, a guy that I take bass lessons with, called Nick Campbell, and I went to see him do a gig last night, and he was playing one of his notorious kind of short scale basses with mystery pickups in it. And it sounded great. And I just love the idea that it would be like, oh, I can do this instead of like that.
Right.
And they sound cool. There was like a really there's some really interesting sonic differences with the
It's a
short.
short scale hollow body.
No, it was like
Oh,
a Fender.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I want all that stuff. I just like, I think if I could get a vintage club bass, the Hofner club bass, that's probably what I would go for. Um, but yeah, it's hard to. Sometimes I don't really, pedals and gear and stuff like that are or and instruments are great because they really are. I don't know if you feel this way. Like they inspire you. You pick up a new pedal and you ultimately like end up hearing shit you haven't heard before or an instrument you haven't played before with a unique tonal character, and it should or could inspire you to like write something, play something, do something different. And that's what's really great about it. But then there's also the part where like you can become so preoccupied with all that shit
Right.
that it's like I was saying about Jamie
Slippery
before.
slope.
Yeah, he's right in that middle space of like artist and scientist. And when you're an engineer or producer, you kind of have to be both. If you're a brilliant technician but you're not good at making music, who fucking cares? You're an engineer. And if you're like only about the art but you have no idea how to make the sounds happen, you're in the way in the session. You know what
Right.
I mean? You kind of need both of those guys. So I feel that way about that stuff where like I'm very plug and play, and I really like the things that are reliable and work consistently for me. I'm not on an endless hunt for the right strings or the longest lasting fucking batteries. Like it's just not as interesting to me as like playing and then other things outside of music.
You do use a wireless?
No, actually with Angels, because I am come here. Dog is now he really knows it's late for dinner. Um,
Your dog is also named Biggie, right?
His name is Biggie, yeah, and
Yeah.
he's we'd show
We
him to you, but he's doing that thing where he's staying perfectly out of arm's reach and just like going.
we also have Biggie here.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Shall we introduce them to one another?
Well, he's in the other room. Rosie's still under my feet,
Another time,
cowering.
another time. But no, I think I was using a wireless with Angels for a little while, and another sort of funny aspect of being in that band is so our stage plot is Elon on a riser and David and Tom in the front, and then I also am on a riser next to Elon, stage left, um, because I am small. Because I am a shortman, and I also have like a synth set up, and I'm like, I have like my own little world up there. But
Right.
also, David is like 6'8", and Tom is 6'5", and I'm not that tall. So the front line
Tom is
of
6'5"?
like 6'4", I think, or 6'5". He's pretty tall. He's taller than you think.
They're tall fuckers.
My first impression when I met them for the very first time was like, oh my God, you guys are fucking giants. Uh, I always had it in my head that they were just like normal sized fellows, but they're above average height fellows. And David is very, very tall. Um, we have a good laugh about this, but I don't think it's like, I don't know what people think, but I like it. It
Yeah.
also keeps me from, I don't have the same, I don't perform the same way I did 15 years ago. So I don't need to be doing eagle kicks and jumping off the riser and stuff like that.
Sure.
I'd be
Well,
so
you'd
much
end up kicking over your synth setup.
something like that, or just like it's also not a band where that's what we're doing. We're not like
Right.
it's not a frenetic energy band. It's an execution band. It's like we do the songs, not that we do the crazy live show. The crazy live show is in the production and in the sound. It's not in and Elon's hair.
Right. You guys have dates.
We have dates, man.
Are
Come
you
here.
so stoked?
Hey,
Hello, Biggie.
be quiet for like a minute.
Um,
Yeah, man, we're super. Watch, see if he's even able to chill. He's freaking. Uh, yeah, we're doing Lollapalooza in July, which is coming up sort of
very
soon.
soon.
Um, and then we're laying low for August, and then we're rehearsing for a while, and then there is a fall tour that is on sale and out there in the US. And then we're also meant to be doing some UK and European shows in the new year. So,
Awesome.
pending the world, all that stuff's coming up, which would be great. I played a couple of gigs around LA lately, and they're surreal and unbelievably enjoyable. I'm really dying to get back on stage and just kind of experience that whole thing again. So hopefully that is sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that you need to feed Biggie.
Yeah.
I feel like we breezed right over it. And I feel like when we had our bass hang, I asked you this question or something similar, but I'm curious, and we kind of breezed right over it conversationally in this conversation. You spent some time away from playing music
Yeah.
doing improvisational comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering,
What the hell was I thinking?
well, no, I'm wondering if you felt um like that helped, like improvisational comedy in the moment with other people, if it helped you musically or the
Yeah.
way you comfortably communicate with people musically.
Yeah. So I could write a book on how not only improv taught and practiced and done well is a really special thing because 90% of it is horseshit. It's a little bit of a laughing laughing stuff. It's a little bit of like a bastard thing in the comedy world, right?
Right.
Like and a lot of great comedians, writers, stand-ups, what have you, actors are brilliant improvisers. That's just what doing bits and joking around is. And it's like how acutely and consistently you can like explore certain ideas. But there's a lot that improv helped me about like just being a person, being a better listener, not getting in my head about my ideas, and also like kind of remaining malleable or liquid in a situation so that you can adapt to whatever's going on around you. And yeah, often like when I would get hung up on something in improv, I had the nice convenient thing of like I would always try to like figure out a problem with one by seeing if I could make an analog with the other. If I was like writing something musically and I was like, oh, why isn't this happening? Sometimes if I thought about it like, you know, the gear shifting from setting up a joke and the punchline or playing what they call the game in an improv scene, the game to me is the chorus, and the
Right.
straight man stuff is the verse, sort of, and the bridge is like an insane group game in the Herald or whatever. Like there were these things that made sense to my brain, and then same with the other way. Like when I was like, I would just kind of think about like what works when you're performing music, and like the same sort of things work with comedy. Like you kind of, it's kind of like crowd work and stuff. You you like you know we all know that if you just walk up to the front of the stage and put your arm in the air or the headstock of your guitar, you will get a rise out of the audience. That's the nature of a crowd. And with comedy, there are like things you can do, not in that similar sort of like aggressively arrogant performative things, but like you can signal to an audience in just as simple a way like very subtly and also effectively. So like I really came out of the improv thing real not only with, like I said before, like a bigger group of friends in my life where I was like, oh, I previously only knew musicians and
Right.
family, you know, And now I knew all these writers and directors and comedians and actors. And I just ran into a friend of mine last night who is an SNL writer, and I didn't even know she was out here. And like she was like sitting at a restaurant around the block from my house. The wonderfully talented, sorry, Anna Dresden. I'm like trying to say her name as I'm choking. Um, who like I used to watch her like put up her own shows in like comedy theaters and bars and stuff like that, and now she like is like a big badass.
Right.
um so like it diversified my friend group. It made me a much more confident and sensitive performer, and as a human being, it just kind of I learned a lot. I if you go into improv just as like I need to do this for my comedy or for my acting, yeah, you'll be all right. But if you really kind of embrace what it is that stuff is about at its core, which is like creating something uh, original and instantaneous together in a collaborative way, it's like that's why when you see it done by like the real masters, it looks like fucking magic. It's like there's no way that wasn't written. It's so structured, it's so funny. And really, if two people are like focused enough and listening hard enough, um, it's doable.
Do you think that there's something that now the audiences for improv are typically pretty small,
And other improvisers.
right? Do you do you think that uh attempting something and failing or having it fall flat there in because if you fuck up in an intimate situation, it's, at least I feel like it's fucking worse than making a mistake on a big stage because the information doesn't translate as directly, right?
Yeah, and like you said, it's more palpable in a small room.
No, you can make eye contact with every single person and they're all looking at you like you're a fucking boob,
Yeah, that's
right?
yeah, and for me, what was really great about it is like I really like to learn things the right way, or like the humble way. You know, I think the older people get, adults have this thing where like you try to teach an adult how to like uh, do something they don't know how to do yet, whether it's as simple as like a fucking one of those paddles with a ball tied to it,
Right.
or like how to do a dance or how to like play a chord on the piano. And adults get fucking weird. They're like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure how to do it. I can't do it. I'm not good at it. I don't have a background. I don't have the train." And it's like you try to teach a kid the same thing and they grab the thing and they start doing it because they're not afraid. They don't care about failure. They don't realize people are watching them. They're fascinated and focused on the thing.
The world hasn't smacked them around yet.
Honestly, a lot of studying improv is trying to unlearn the shitty conditioning of being a cold, hollow adult and get back to your playful child, but keep the intellect of the adult and the experiences of the adult.
Wait a
So,
minute. That makes one of us.
yeah, well, it's
That you
like,
have the intellect of an
yeah,
adult.
yeah, sorry, I'm assuming here. But yeah, man, it for me, it was really great because and I was nervous and insecure, and I didn't know a single person when I started hanging around the theater. Like I was in classes and making friends and stuff, but like I was able to hide at that point that I was in Taking Back Sunday or that I had like played with these bands. I think it was actually when I was playing with the Rejects was when I really, really dug in over there. And I never really wanted anyone to know that because I didn't want it to like I didn't want the attention. It was like I could do, at that time, Rejects were doing like big shows, right?
Right.
Get nervous for that shit ever. Backstage for a music performance, no matter what it is, I'm ready. I'm like dying to get on stage.
Yeah.
If I was playing to 8 other people, the other 2 improv teams, in a basement of a stinky, shitty, putrid, like Irish bar in Midtown, I was sweating just 2 hours before the show, knowing I was going to have to do it. Improv is really standing on the edge of a knife. And like I said, a vast majority of it is just bad. It's just not, it's bad because it's one of those art forms that encourages you getting up on stage and just doing it before you should. You know, music doesn't really do that. Sure, there are recitals for children and stuff like that, but even those have the vague semblance of like, oh, some work has been done here. People are doing improv shows while they're still taking 101 and they're just excited to be doing it. And that's great. It also mars the art form. It makes the art seem like, oh, this is horseshit. Everyone's
Right.
got a story of I went to see my friend's improv show and it was horrible. Well, your friend just took 201 at a small town theater in the middle of nowhere. So I'm sorry you had to do that.
Right.
But there's a tremendous amount of human good and applicable skill that you can portable skill that you can take elsewhere if you care about improv, even just socially. It makes you more able to hang out.
Right. Now, so that was a pretty good spell of time, yeah?
About 5 years.
5 years. No touring, no gigs.
Very few, no, almost no touring, gigs in town or things that were like too good to pass up. I also started a band with a friend of mine where we did like a band, like, you know, two guys writing songs and producing them together. And we started doing shows around New York, around Manhattan. And yeah, I was just kind of, I mean, dude, at that point, I had been touring since 1998 for the majority of every year.
Right.
And it was 2012. And I was like, fuck, I want to do something different.
What was the call that came in that got you like that got your gears greased?
Playing again.
Yeah.
At the end of like whatever, like in 2018, I was considered and then kind of auditioned and offered a tour with the Broadway show Dear Evan Hansen. So I did that tour, and I was mostly very excited to play electric bass and upright bass in like a orchestral type setting with other, you know, proper string instruments. And also I have some, you know, friends who are involved in the show, so it was kind of like a fun communal thing. So I did that for about 8 or 9 months, and then while I was out on that, I connected with Beck, and the Glassjaw thing materialized, and at the same time, Angels. So it kind of was like all of us, you know. One of my friends pulled me aside one day. And he was like, "Wow, man, you just decided to play music again, and it's fucking there for you. That's amazing." And that's like a gross oversimplification of the reality.
Sure.
But like, yeah, man, I put it down for a little while, and then when I was ready to pick it back up, it just,
It
you know,
took off. Was
yeah,
your enthusiasm recharged in a way kind of like what we were talking about before when you've got a you side job and it came back and you were like 110% again?
yeah. I don't know what I'm always like curious about it to consider what I would have done if I didn't take a break, because I had gotten offered a gig at the end of the Rejects thing that was like, ugh, should I do this? And like, you know, like some creatives, I think sometimes unless you have a lot of purpose and drive and focus on a goal, like you can be, I felt susceptible to opportunity. Someone was like,
Right.
hey, so and so's going on tour and they need a bass player, do you want to do it? Like if I think about the music and I go no, and then I think about whatever the money offer is, right? And if it's like good or bad, and you go, all right, well, there's that. And then you find out who else is going to be involved, the other musicians,
Right.
whether or not you may know someone or what the vibe is. I always say you got to have two out of three of those things. You either have to love the music, the money, or the people. Two of those. You very rarely get all three, because if you did, you'd just do that gig for the rest of your life. But
Right.
you know, I started being okay with one of those. You know, sometimes a gig with visibility felt like, oh, I'm a professional musician. This is, of course, this is what I do. And then it's like, well, yeah, but playing with, you know, unnamed whack artist to me, like, you know, it's weird to, I found myself occasionally considering doing things that might be impressive to people and might make sense with the patchwork quilty nature of my career. But like, did I innately want to do them? Hell no. I mean, it's like, sometimes you're just doing a gig because you're getting paid doing your thing, doing your art, doing your instrument, dancing, whatever.
You've
uh,
you've certainly put together an impressive quilt, and
it's a
it's
weird.
wildly varied.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it doesn't surprise me that you played electric and upright in an orchestral sort of setting. Um, although not many people who have done, all the things before that moment similar to what you've done would be able to rise to that occasion. That's like a
Yeah, that
testament to
community
your
is interesting. That theater musician community is interesting because many of them are there to do that. That's their relativity to music, you know.
right.
And then there's a handful that do that as one of their gigs, you know,
Yeah, how
one of
many cellists are like, yeah, I'm going out with Metallica next year.
right. But there are right, but you know, there are specifically the cellist who plays Dear Evan Hansen, the book, the score is heavily is a big bad guitar and cello book mainly.
Oh,
The playing in that shit is intense, and the cellist both that has the chair in New York, if the show is still happening right now, I don't know. And the cellist we had on tour with us, the cellists, because in different cities we'd have some different ones occasionally. You had to be a badass to do it. Um, Especially because like the composers and arranger and orchestrators of the show have very 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 high standards, so they don't fuck around. If you can't hang, you will not keep the job.
right.
I just barely could hang. You know.
Can you do string arrangement?
No, I don't
No.
have those skills. I probably could up against someone who knows what they're doing. No, I'd fall on my face. But I know how to,
Right.
like, you know, I know I like music and I know music, so I can like
Oh, you like
function
music?
like music. If I had people in a room and I had to like, we need an arrangement quick, I'd be like, all right, we could figure this out. But no, I'm not formally trained in that in any way.
Got it. Listen, man, I know that your dog's losing his fucking mind.
Now he's just on the floor. Now he's just
He's
like,
just like slobbering, looking at you like I'm gonna wait till you fall asleep and I'm
7
gonna piss on
o'clock?
your pillow, motherfucker.
Yeah, 7 o'clock dinner is at 6 o'clock.
You're gonna find out why they call me Biggie.
Yeah, gross, terrifying.
um, I had a great time talking with you,
Always, man.
and
We're a new friendship, and it's been great. It's been a nice time.
I can't believe how good you are at music,
I'll stop. Thanks.
and
Same,
I
man. You
hope
play
that
like a bunch of instruments and all the genres with all these different people. You're like a chameleon.
I'm like a half baked version at best, quarter baked. I'm like the cookie dough that you get and it's already kind of cooked. You put it in the microwave and then you can eat it.
As
That's
long
a
as you're
cookie.
baked, dude, it's all good.
um, but I wish you continued successes
You
and
too.
all
Hope
of
to
the
catch
best
you
things your way.
out on tour. Well, hopefully I'll catch you at some point in the next couple of months.
We might cross paths, and you'll be out this way, right?
Yeah, yeah. We have some shows in that in the old Northeast for sure.
Will you be in Albany?
I got to look at the thing. I don't have it
Man,
handy.
I've seen bands are coming through all everyone's so fucking excited to go on tour. They're like, Albany? Fuck yeah, we'll be there.
Well, you know what it is too is that the booking industry is it's there's so of you know there's literally a bottlenecking of everyone in entertainment all wanting to go on tour mostly at the same time. So when I was talking to one particular manager, he was telling me how like crazy it is right now. Even like a lot of bands, you might notice this, are releasing tour dates that are just the cities and no mention of a venue
Right.
because they either aren't sure what kind of draw they're going to expect or venue availability is all fucking over the place. And he was telling me, yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. The only reason we kind of have going on what we do or anyone at the moment is because they got on it and stayed on it since the beginning of quarantine. He was saying that next 2022 is even worse. It's a way bigger shit show. So, and I'm not, Albany in the touring industry is probably a B market, right? Like just below an A market. Albany's a big city, but as far as like, it's not
It's a
Detroit,
yeah.
Chicago,
No.
LA, New York,
Right.
Dallas. So bands probably are like, yeah, dude, Erie, let's go play Erie. Cool, let's do it.
Right.
Like we need a gig, people will drive. It's fine. Um, it's really intense. The ripples of the last year are really just starting, and we all just have to hope they don't become tsunamis ever.
It's interesting that I noticed that when I was looking, scrolling through Instagram and you see someone's tour dates and you're like, oh, fuck, let's just see. Because now that I'm not in Brooklyn, I'm always looking, is there a
Right,
date out here? Or maybe someone's going to play in Woodstock even, or
right,
there's all the, there's some places around here.
yeah.
And,
That that's a thing. When you live in a major city, you're just like, come on, baby, when are you coming? And when you don't, it's like, oh man, I got to drive or I got to keep my eye on the news.
yeah, it ain't like that anymore. But yeah, I noticed a bunch of people just posting the cities, and I was like, "Huh, you're gonna make me work for it, huh?" And I
Yeah,
didn't ever
that's true.
even considered why.
Yeah, it's a number of things go into it, but it's mostly trying to feel out that early ticket draw and venue size and overall routing. It's sure bookers are just pulling their hair out or psyched because they're just like working all the time.
Right, Biggie.
Dude, chill.
He's like, "Fuck you, man. Feed me."
Mad at him. He's insanely adorable. Can't yell at an 8 pound little teddy bear. It's hard.
uh, have a great evening.
Thanks, man. You too. I'll be seeing you. I'll definitely catch you on the road. We'll,
Keep
we'll
killing it,
yeah.
and I'll talk to you soon. Hey, do you have some high res photos you could send me of you performing that
I
I can dice up and make some promotional posts with?
Yeah, I can try to send you something. Can you give me a day or two?
Totally. This is next week.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I'll get on it once the week. I have a couple things recording wise to finish. I'm going to a birthday party in a little bit, and then tomorrow I'll be around. I can probably try to get you something.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, bud. Have a
Always
great night.
yeah, you too.
Thanks.